Thank you, Lisa, for co-hosting. Janice, thank you for co-hosting. All right, Anna, take it away. You got the floor.
It's been a very busy week. I'm not going to try to belabor this with you guys. I've been up for 2 days straight, 54 hours and counting. So that's how busy it's been. It's been good busy overall. The corporation, the British Crown Corporation, is trying to push back, but they don't really have a leg to stand on when it comes to their claims against us and the way they've administered everything here. So we are pretty much carrying the day. And I guess the good part of this is that our rights have been retained. We've been able to maintain our guarantees and our treaties and our standing with respect to the international community. We are in the process of getting our gold and silver and other assets properly identified, audited, and back in our safekeeping instead of being on offshore locations. I don't know about you, but I feel better having our gold and silver and other things back here on our land and soil and not, in some place like, the Cayman Islands or that sort of thing. We today got the manifest, or at least a recent manifest of the contents of Fort Knox. It was done during the Obama administration. And judging by the activities at the facility, everything that was there should still be there. That whole facility is able to hold about 8,000 metric tons of gold. And really, that sounds like a very huge amount, but owing to the extreme heaviness of gold, it really isn't that much in terms of volume and space. It does all fit very well within the Fort Knox facility. In addition to that, we have picked up a lot of gold that was one way or another owed to our government, owed to our people, or owed to what they've been calling historic and legacy trusts. Now, many of those 5,000 trusts should be in the secure possession, pardon me, of groups of trustees that were actually supposed to be the ones in control of the assets. Having my little sneezing fit. My grandma would say I have pixies up my nose. But anyway, we've had quite a week. It's been exhausting. It's been gratifying. It's been wonderful for me. Because so much of what I've said for years has been verified. It's been affirmed by the history and the records. And
Bless you, Anna.
I know I have these sneezing fits, these crazy sneezing fits. It's something that's afflicted me all my life. And of course I have my friends, the books here, and I'm allergic to book dust. So, but anyway, it's been really gratifying. It's wonderful. I'm getting my house back. I'm getting my other land and things that they stole over the years back. And if any of my stuff has been ruined or stolen, I have the option of charging them up to 800 times the value of the item as malicious damages.
Go ahead, Deanna.
Well, so anyway, it's been a very gratifying, very busy, challenging week. I'm getting my house and my land back. And as I was telling you, there's a very famous damages suit, Cleopatra Hislop, where if it's aggravated damages, where they should have known better and they went ahead and did something in a targeted manner, you can get up to 800 times the damage for malicious damages. And in my case, there's a pattern, a clearly established pattern of targeting me and my husband. So it looks like the whole saga is resolving in our favor, and that there's light at the end of that tunnel, and that they will be discouraged from targeting other people in the future. And perhaps most importantly, all those people who have been illegally and immorally deprived of their homes and their businesses and their land under the false presumption of federal taxes and franchise taxes will get either repayment for their property that was stolen, or they will get their property back. And I'm assuming that a lot of that will be your choice. I mean, if you lost a house 20 years ago, you moved on and your life is the way you want it, you may just decide that you would go for the monetary recompense. But if you just have a special attachment to a place, or you haven't really found a different home, it might make more sense to do what I've done, which after a few months of living very kind of I've been living like a college student, then you might prefer to get your house back, and that's exactly what I'm doing. And yeah, I know it's funny, but it's true. But we're very much looking forward to getting back in our house, and kind of scared about seeing what damage has been done. I know that they took out a large chunk of my deck, and so I know that there's been some damage. I'm not exactly sure why. I assume that there have been some changes made in my house as a result of these people being there. And I'm not sure what kind of damage and theft has gone on. But we'll be finding out pretty soon. And other than that, that's about all the tip-top news of the week. I continue, as I have always continued, my objections to the entire practice of lying in any form. And yes, I do consider gossip a form of lying, because you're making things up out of suppositions, and you're kind of building this group art project. And I keep hearing all sorts of bizarre interpretations of things that people have heard me say but not really heard me. For example, I just heard someone claim that I got $150,000 for a trip to the Netherlands, which, as it turned out, was aborted because the Dutch authorities would not let me into the country. But we did have a group of 4 people who acted in my place, who were there and able to represent us. And we did have a group of for people that actually traveled all the way across the country by car, both going and coming. An 8,000-mile road trip for people my age. Okay, so in the winter, and they went anyway. They had car trouble and had to lay over for 4 days, and I mean it was quite an adventure for them, but they went. And because we have these good people that are willing to share their time and their expertise and to undertake these rather arduous and difficult activities and journeys, we were able to hold our place in the international community and keep our claims live. And we were able to testify in the matter. We were able to bring back some court records that were very helpful. And we accomplished our diplomatic mission. But someone somewhere thought that this was a lawsuit that had my name on it. And so they wrote to The Hague and asked if there was a lawsuit with my name on it, and came back and said, oh, there was no lawsuit with her name on it. Oh, there's something wrong. I never said that there was a lawsuit with my name on it. And I never said that this was a presentment of a lawsuit. Testimony is not a presentment. I don't know where people do this. They think that they're investigating something, but they haven't listened enough to know what's really going on. And then they are off on this kind of fanciful, fictitious line of suppositions. Oh, she got $150,000. I got $15,000 and made it work. Okay? Just because you ask for what you need doesn't mean you always get it. Sometimes you have to really struggle and suffer, and people sacrifice, and they go without things they need, and they sleep in moth-eaten hotels, and they look like they didn't really belong. I can only imagine what our delegates looked like by the time they got to New York City, after having bumped all the way across this country, mostly in snowstorms and ice storms. They must have crawled out of the back of that Explorer, or it was an Expedition. They must have crawled out of the back of that old car, a 2005 Expedition, 8,000 miles. Okay, you have the picture? Everybody else shows up and they all look good and they all have on their fancy suits and their beautiful dresses, and they're all just perky and their makeup is flawless and all the rest of it. We show up like we just walked in off the farm, okay? And we didn't have the money to make it look any differently. But we didn't care. We were there anyway. And that's the important part. And the important part is that even though we had to scrape by, and there were times when we had to kind of borrow from each other to make it work. Like I suddenly had to come up with $700 for a new radiator for the Expedition. Okay. That's how we've been shoestringing and bootstrapping this along. It's just by the goodwill and determination of our fellow Americans. Our expatriate guy who was one of the delegates over at The Hague, he had a hell of a time getting across the English Channel, but he got there. Okay. So this is the kind of operation that we have here. And, I can't do it tonight, but anyone who thinks that I'm living in any kind of luxury appointments needs to have their head examined. This is a double-wide trailer, unfurnished, with cement flooring. When I say I'm living like a college student, I literally mean it. And so, this idea that I'm somehow making money or stealing or this is just nonsense. And people need to recognize that. Another complaint that came up was that I and Boyd Adams both refused to pay property taxes and lost our homes. Well, think about that for a minute. We knew what we were doing. It wasn't because we couldn't pay the property taxes. It's because we knew that we didn't owe any property taxes. In fact, we knew that we didn't have property or real estate. We had land and houses. Okay? Pay attention to the language. It's a code. They use code, and they code everything to their own advantage. So when they say real estate and they talk about having a land title, that's British. Real is it's a transliteration for royal. It comes from that same word. And so when they say real estate, especially in Spanish, you get royal estate. And when you have a land title, just think of Sir Sagramore and, giving a title to a duchess or whatever. It's British, it's monarchy. And in our case, the monarchy is always British, except for the Spanish monarchy, which dances in and out a little bit. But anyway, when you see that, you know you're dealing with the British territorial government. And it's the same way with the word property. Property, we don't have property. Property is something that's being held in trust. We have land. Okay, so when they send you a property tax bill, they're already lying and mischaracterizing and impersonating you. So you can be sure that if you have land and a house you built, it is not a property and you are not a homeowner. And that's how they've gotten away with their scam of home loans. They never say house loans. They always say home loans. And there's a reason that they say home loans and why they mischaracterize you as a home owner. A home is something that you create and inhabit. Okay? It's the atmosphere. It's the dishes. It's the internal environment of a house. It's not the house. So keep it under your, in your brain and in your radar that you don't have a land description. You have a meets and bounds survey. You don't have a land title. You have a meets and bounds survey. You don't have any real estate. You may have bought real estate, but you don't have real estate if you're an American. You're not, your parcel isn't supposed to be in any foreign land trust. And keep these things in your mind so that you can keep it straight. Anyway, Boyd and I just decided we're not going to pay any more property taxes that we know we don't owe. Just pure and simple. We're the landlords. They're the employees. We don't have any property. And we're not going to pay any of this property tax. Okay? Well, here these people are talking about Boyd as if he was dangerous and stupid, and, putting himself out there like that and getting in trouble. And here I am doing the same thing. I didn't get evicted because I couldn't pay the property taxes on my place. I got evicted because I stood up against the rats and I established a record that is highly detrimental to them. And they went ahead and they evicted me. They trespassed on my land and they evicted me from my house that I owned free and clear, all of it. And they thought they got away with it. Well, today, the governor got served with demand to return my house in 3 days. Well, in one particular way, here's the problem. They went ahead, they evicted me, even though they should have known better, right? They had targeted me and they did this, oh, we're going to make an example out of her. And all they did was make an example out of themselves. I should also add the detail that I'm over 65 years old, and according to their own rules, I didn't owe any property taxes too. Okay? So there were a lot of things. They brought the claim against Anna S. Reisinger. Who's Anna S. Reisinger? We all know my name is Anna Maria Reisinger. Even if they did use an initial, which is technically illegal, the use of a legal name is illegal. That's another one of their nice twists. They just messed up 50 Ways to Sunday. And they thought that this was all right and that it was going to stand and that they were going to have control of everything from beginning to end because, of course, they own the court. They hire the court officers or elect them from within their select little group of their foreign citizenry. These guys work for them as an in-house corporate tribunal. They've got it sewn up from end to end. There is no way that you can win except on a technicality when they're too embarrassed to try to push it, okay? And I know this, all right? And then other corporation employees wearing guns and uniforms, who really are nothing but private personal security officers like Pinkertons, right? Come to your house and evict you. Walk right past your no trespassing signs and your postings. Walk right up your driveway, just bright as day, and throw you off your land and out of your house as if they had some authority or right to do this, based on a false claim that you owe them property taxes. Well, not only do you not have any property, you actually have land and a house, but they are claiming that you owe them money for services rendered. And that's true. Okay, that part of it is true. That's the only part of it's true. You do owe money for things like fire service and road grading, or rather your property owes money. Okay, that's how it works. They tax the property to pay the bill for all these different maintenance things, right? But because you, number one, have nothing that you can use to pay that bill and actually pay it, a demand to pay it is an impossibility imposed upon you, and they have no right to do that because they're the cause of the problem. When they took away our gold and silver asset-backed money, they took away any way, any possibility of actually paying a debt, because you cannot pay a debt with another debt. What they're actually doing is they're strong arm under duress coercing you to extend more credit to them. Okay? And they can't do that. That's illegal. So here they are, and they've developed this whole system and set themselves up as, you know, their own little petty gods with no authority to do so. They've hired their court. They have hired their enforcement using your money and your assets as the basis of their money, their fiat money. And they're just railroading millions of Americans. They're stealing their life and their property and their homes. and they're getting away with it. And this armed racketeering under color of law has resulted in millions of Americans losing their homes, their farms, their ranches, their businesses, everything. And we've all just sat here deaf, dumb, and stupid and thought, oh, well, that's the government. They must be right. No, they're criminals. They're racketeers. They're corporate mercenaries. And unless you hop to their tune and pay them whatever they say that you owe them, they'll steal everything that you've got. But here's the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey used to say. You do owe them for snow plowing and fire service and cleaning out the right-of-ways along the roads and maintaining stop signs and all that kind of stuff. You owe them for that. But you don't have a way to pay it. And that's their fault. And on top of that, they owe you so ghastly much more money than you owe them that, given the circumstance, the only sane thing to do is to exchange the debt. And that kind of debt swap makes perfect sense. It reduces their national debt and it leaves the people in peace. And that is, in fact, the remedy that they proposed in Title 12 of the Federal Code. It's called a mutual offset credit exchange exemption. And I know that that is a mouthful, but that is the actual remedy that they proposed to legalize their actions when the Federal Reserve System and the Federal Reserve Note was adopted. And you can look it up in Title 12 and see it for yourself. There is a provision, and this is the remedy, that if they come to you with a debt for their services, you, not they, but you can choose to exercise your exemption and say, hey, I'm exempt. I'll pay you using my debt swap capability. So you can exchange your debt to them for a portion of their debt to you. And I guarantee you that they owe you hundreds of thousands of times more than you could ever owe them. And this is the irony. They're using this excuse like a mechanic's lien. Oh, you owe me $2,000. And at the same time, they owe you $600,000. And this is the game they've been playing. So Boyd and I just kind of got our backs up and decided, no, we're not going to pay that. We're not going to pay that. And if you come after us and harm us, then we're going to have an injury, a real injury. You're going to have harmed us by not giving us our exemptions, not recognizing that we have nothing to pay with thanks to you. And, we're going to go toe to toe on this. We're going to sort it out. And what they're fighting is that they know that when they give in to me and give me my house back, they've just signed the death warrant on their entire system. They know that they have no grounds to stand on for what they've done to me. They know that this is going to set precedent for people all over the country. They know that they're going to have to cough up those mutual offset credit exchange exemptions and finally provide a program and access to the remedy, they know that they're going to have to address the Federal Reserve note scam. And I have already informed the bankers that all of their attempts to escape into central bank digital currency and different kinds of cryptocurrencies and all these schemes that are designed one way or another to continue the same old rotten system and continue to, accrue these odious debts and apply them to the living people and pass off corporate tax liabilities and obligations onto the living people. And all of these other things, it just isn't going to work. Because there are too many people who now know the scam, who can see it in operation. There are too many people waking up on both sides of the fence. There are the people, yours truly, a living woman who's being, well, they're trying to foist off all these corporate taxes on me, right? But on the other hand, there are all these lawyers that are suddenly getting a nose full of it and going, oh, holy crap. I've been acting as a privateer. I've been stealing from these people. I've been in violation of my oath. I've been violating the Constitution. Oh my God, oh my God. They're panicking, and they should. And there's another reason they should be panicking, because we're getting ready to exercise a $279 trillion gold common law commercial bond. So what do I mean by a gold common law commercial bond or lien? When you think about commerce is business between two incorporated entities. It's not just business between people. It's not business between an unincorporated mom and pop business. It's not any kind of, average company. It has to be incorporated as a franchise of a larger commercial corporation in order for it to be commerce. Okay, so commerce is very strictly defined as business between two incorporated entities. Okay? So the reason that they've done this is there's the interstate commerce clause in the Constitution. They want to gain control over everybody using the claim that we're all engaged in commerce all the time and we're all incorporated franchises. And this is just self-interested hooey. So the Commerce Clause is used like a hook. And the whole idea that we're engaged in commerce is wrong. And once again, they were pulling the same deal with the claim against my property, against Boyd's property, and against the property tax claims that they brought against literally millions of Americans. So we just stood up and put up our backs and put up our lives and put up our properties and our house and our land, and refused to pay it. And you can see how it's turning out. They were wrong. They've always been wrong. They've been proven wrong. And now they're being taken to task. They don't like it, but the proof is in the pudding. And so the Alaska governor and one of the generals here in Alaska were trying to argue it. And actually, it just comes down to, well, you shouldn't have taken her house. Let me just segue a little bit because I know this is a topic that's near and dear to many of you, and it's going to be near and dear to people that you know because it's affecting lives and families. Okay. What happens when when this happens, when a situation like mine happens? They evicted me. They took possession of all my personal belongings. They spent 5 days ransacking through my books and papers. I don't know what they were looking for, but they did not find it. you know. But anyway, they made a terrible mess of everything. They then opened up my house to house sitters, and I've had house sitters sort of squatting in my house ever since. And I have no idea what kind of damage they've done. I do know they stole a significant amount of food and medical supplies. I do know that they stole tools, including, things that were dear to me because they were my father's tools, hand tools from back in the day. I know that they stole a brand new snowblower, a brand new generator that a friend had given me. I know they stole my trailer. I know they stole cars and trucks off of the property. What else they stole, I don't know. But here's this young couple who's been sitting there as house sitters, and in 3 days, they have to pick up and move all of their earthly belongings, everything that they've brought into the house over the past 18 months, almost a year, and they have to move. They got to get up and skedaddle in 3 days. They don't get 30 days. They don't even get the 2 weeks that I was nominally given. And there is another situation where the same sort of deceit and fraud scheme was played to claim another house of mine under a very slightly different circumstance. And the man who bought the place, thinking that he was buying a tax sale property, has been there since 2014. 12 years. This is, as far as he knows, this is his house. It's his property. It's his land. And in 3 days, he has to be gone. And the corporations responsible for this situation are going to have to come up with some plausible narrative, some kind of claim, some kind of song and dance, some sort of excuse to explain away why all of a sudden he has to move. Well, I can guarantee you that he's going to have a complaint against them too now, not just me, but him also, because he's been harmed as a third party. And what basis are they going to give? Oh, we made a mistake. This woman didn't actually owe any property taxes. Or are they going to come up and say something like, oh, we've found a dangerous pollutant in the water, and you have to move out of your house to, it's a public safety issue, and you could get sick if you stay here. I don't know what kind of lie or what kind of BS story they're going to come up with, or what kind of excuses they're going to try to throw at us. But I can tell you that we're going to win. And I have a lot of sympathy, a lot of, I feel bad for people that are being ripped up and tossed away like a used nose rag by the system. And I feel bad for a man who's invested his life and time in a property for 12 years, and now, boom, he's going to get hit with that. But what this does is it puts a stick in their little red wagon wheels. It puts a no further contract on them. It basically tells them, okay, you keep doing this to innocent people, you keep throwing them out of their house under false presumptions of indebtedness and aggravated identity theft, and you keep on trying to work this old shtick that you've got going. And we're just going to keep on coming in and forcing you to remove these third parties and return the property that you stole. And as they are forced to do that, they're going to have to pay the third parties that are removed from the property. They're going to have to pay the homeowner, or as I should say, the house owner. Okay, I have to practice this just like everybody else. The house owner, not the homeowner. They removed the house owner, so they're going to have to pay me, plus give me my property back, plus do any repairs or repair any damage that has been done to my property as a result. Plus, they're going to have to return as a tort claim, a separate tort claim, up to 800 times damages if my mother's crystal has been broken, if my sterling silver has been pilfered, if my jewelry case has been taken, if any of Jim's paintings have disappeared, guess what? It's going to be a deep tort. It's going to knock them right in the chops. It's going to cause mass, almost hysterical panic throughout the bar association lands. It's going to be a big deal. And they will try to shove it under the rug. They'll try. But I can guarantee you that there are already half a dozen of these actions in motion up and down the West Coast. And there'll be more. Because these people literally have no right or granted authority to do any of this. It is all illegal, it is all unlawful, and it is all immoral. They strike out on all three counts. So, just wanted to bring you up to date on all of that and discuss these issues so that if you or somebody that you know and love is facing a false claim of property taxes, income taxes, any kind of tax, all of these federal related taxes or federal franchise state of state taxes, they are all dependent on what? The 16th Amendment. And what was it a 16th Amendment to? Well, it sure as hell wasn't any federal constitution that the people ever approved, because the states of the Union never ratified the 16th Amendment. And we know that. We also know that the only definition of income in the income tax is profit separated from capital. Do you have capital? Do you have income? Do you have federal income? The only way that they get away with saying that you have federally connected income is because they force you to use Federal Reserve notes. Which was forced upon you under duress anyway. And by the way, they still haven't paid you back for all the silver that they inequitably exchanged for their Federal Reserve notes. Oh, and when they put these Federal Reserve notes into the economy, they don't have a mechanism other than wearing out the bills to take those IOUs back. So I want you to think about this. I've showed you all this before, and maybe you're getting bored, but it's so important that I really want you to think about this little thought experiment. You've got a $10 Federal Reserve note. Now that you realize that it's a promissory note, a promise to pay, otherwise known as an IOU, right? And you exchange that IOU for what? A hamburger? And fries? Okay. So then the guy that sold you the hamburger and fries goes to his supplier and pays that same IOU in exchange for a package of hamburger buns. And then the baker, he takes that same IOU and exchanges it for 10 pounds of flour. So you've got a hamburger and fries, and you've got hamburger buns, and you've got 10 pounds of flour. All for what? The same $10 IOU. Now, wouldn't that just be magical if you could have one little IOU that just keeps multiplying and giving you back goods and services endlessly until it finally just deteriorates out of sheer use and passing it around? Well, we conducted some experiments and we found out that at a minimum, a dollar bill will last through around 2,500 to 3,000 or 3,500 in some cases exchanges before it gets so dog-eared and dirty that the bank would naturally put it in a drawer and destroy it. That means that that $1 bill has turned into, very conservatively, $2,500 worth of goods and services that have been paid out, prepaid, on an IOU. And that $10 bill has turned into $25,000 worth of goods and services that you have provided in response to that same IOU being presented over and over and over again. And this is the source of all that prepaid credit that I keep talking about. This is why you, Joe Average, are owed immense amounts of prepaid credit that has been paid in the form of goods and services that you already provided. Now, the Federal Reserve only counts when they release this bill into the economy. They count it one time. So take a look at the national debt, plus all the interest on the national debt, which would not exist if there were no national debt, and realize that literally not only is there no national debt, they actually owe you 2,500 times the national debt that you've already paid in actual goods and services. 2,500 times the national debt. And that's a conservative estimate. And now you know, as Paul Harvey would say, why their debt to you is insurmountable. That's why every bank is, in fact, insolvent. So not only is there no national debt, there's no valid reason for any interest on any national debt. And instead of you being the debtor in this situation, you are all creditors already owed vast amounts of prepaid credit above and beyond discharging the national debt. This situation is so crazy. It is so absolutely crazy when you stop and think about it, that we have let this go on since 1913 and have been victimized by it every single day, by a money mill that benefited the perpetrators of this at the expense of the living people. And now there are a few individuals who are determined to bring an end to it. And I had to stand there and listen to people who should have known better, criticizing Boyd Adams for taking a stand. And they stood there right in front of me and criticized him as I was doing the same thing, putting backbone, putting real assets, putting my life, my home at risk to force the issue and save the homes of millions of Americans. That was what was on the table. My little house in Big Lake versus all of that. And I was willing to make that sacrifice. Win, lose, or draw. Because it had to be done. And because more of that kind of courageous action has to be taken by more people to bring this to a halt. And I want you all to know that as far as I'm concerned, Boyd Adams is not stupid. He's not doing something dangerous. He's doing the right thing. He's showing more courage and backbone than 98.9.9.9 Americans will ever have. But it's because of those of us who are willing to do this kind of thing and put ourselves at risk that this country has a chance to survive and thrive, and for its people to come out from underneath the yoke of these pernicious mercenary corporations that have secretively practiced peonage and enslavement against us in our own homes. So I want you to know what that is about. I want you to know that there are actual living, breathing people who have suffered the consequences. I want you to remember Terry Somm and the horrible, horrible ordeal that she went through when they targeted her and came after her and stole her ancestral home, which was beautiful and had beautiful gardens and was peaceful. And they came in there in waves and they trashed her home. They strew, her belongings were strewn out on the street. Her little dog was so terrorized by the whole event that it died in her arms. And then they had the effrontery to lift up their hands against her and strike her and leave a big gash on her face. And they thought that they were hot cheese. They peed on her furniture and had a big party, a big bonfire. And she had to stand there and watch it. But she didn't pay her enemy. She didn't buckle. Neither did I. So when you get property tax relief and you finally realize that you don't have property, you have land and you have a house, not a home, and that you are not a home owner, and you see through their entire little shtick, their con game, then maybe you'll be ready to come home. And maybe you'll really take it to heart that this is a struggle in the jurisdiction of the air. It's a fight for the mind and the heart. It's a matter of belief. It's a matter of knowing and logic and discernment. All those people that just go along and say, oh, well, that's the way things are. I can't do anything about it. They're condemning themselves and their children and their neighbors and everybody on this planet to slavery, to arbitrary slavery. Just today, I saw an article come over, and it was a court decision saying that the product of genetically altered organisms also belongs to the patent holder. Well, guess what? If you took the COVID-19 shot, you are a genetically modified organism. And now they're claiming that your children are their property too. Where does this stop? It stops when we all get our hackles up and say no. It stops when we demand the death of these commercial corporations and when we take action to outlaw mercenary conflicts of all kinds. Period. Now, these horrors have been visited on us, and we have been so dead asleep that we didn't even notice. People told us for years that, oh, this is a Federal Reserve note. But we never stopped to wonder, note? What's a note? What are they talking about? Whoever took you aside other than me and grabbed your hold of you by both shoulders and said, this is a promissory note. It's an IOU. And guess what? It doesn't stipulate when it's going to be paid off. It doesn't have any statement about how it's going to be paid or in what kind of payment. It's not a negotiable instrument. This is the kind of deaf, dumb, blind, and asleep behavior that I've put up with since all of this began. And that's now basically 40 years. And every damn day, I get slandered. I get slandered. I get called horrible names. I get accused of doing horrible things and being this horrible person. I figured out that I have over 87,000 hours of free gratis community service into this. 87,000 hours. Full time. Averaging 60 hours a week since 1997. Just to bring you this message, just to hammer it home, and just to continue a struggle against tyranny by corporations, nameless, faceless things that are basically only existing on paper, things that we are entertaining, things that have no natural right to exist. So I want you to take a real good look at my face. I want you to get a grasp of the look in my eye. I want you to understand that for me, there is no retreat. There is no regret. There is no fear. There's nothing but a bone hard, cold determination to see this through and see this country free again, and to see some sanity and some decency in this country again. I've told you all that when we first come to this knowledge and we begin to think about these things, and it becomes obvious that we are not living in a land of the free, we're living in a land of the slave and of the brainwashed and the half dead and half asleep, that we go through stages that are very similar to grief. You know, we have that moment of shock when it first hits us, however it hits us. And then we deny it. Oh no, that can't be possible. And then slowly as we look around, we realize that, yeah, it is possible. It's not only possible, it's true. And once we really get to that point of knowing there's this horrible, sickening, gut-wrenching, bottom dropped out of everything moment, and you just sit there and you feel like you are the only person in the universe and you have just hit the bottom of the roller coaster. That's how it feels to really own up to this, to really realize what's happened to your country and what's happened to you because of it, and what your family faces and what your children will face because of it. And then after you have that roller coaster moment and you have your moment of sheer terror because you realize that you're all alone out here facing a machine, then you go through a process of grief and you mourn for your ignorance. You yearn to go back to being just fat, dumb, and happy and plodding along with your little dreams and your little schemes to, get through life. And you mourn that. And you mourn the warm, fuzzy feelings of your country, your apple pie, your fireworks. Yes, you mourn it. You realize that it's either dead or it's dying. And whatever this thing that's coming down the pike is, it's not your country. It's not the vision that you had of it as a child. It's not that safe place that you grew up in. And after you mourn it, about step 7 of the entire process, you get like me. You get to that point where you're like Clint Eastwood in some of his Western movies, where he spits in those old spaghetti Westerns. And then you know that hell is going to come to breakfast. Then you know that this is existential. Then you know that there's no way but to win this. There is no going back. There's no unseeing what you've seen. There's no way to get away from the responsibility that has suddenly landed squarely between your eye sockets. You have only two things that are possible, and that is to get cold, to get determined, to not care what anybody thinks or anybody says, and to just bull on through and never give up. Or you can be a coward. You can be like Hunter. You can run squealing home to the nanny state. And you can betray everything and everyone. And you can betray yourself most of all. That's your other option. But as for me, that's not an option. For me, the only way is over, under, around, or through. And I just want you all to know tonight that this is not an easy road. This is not something fun. This is not something without its degree of danger. And for me, it's a lot of work. I mean, a lot of work. So if I'm not always perfect, and if I sometimes swear, and if I sometimes get a little bit testy, or I sometimes seem not to hear, or I seem like I'm taking forever to answer questions, or I'm a bit impatient about having to answer the same question for the 5,054th time, yes, I am nonetheless here. And I'm never going home again until home is here for all of us. Just like that old Battle Hymn of the Republic tune. And I'm not talking about it in terms of North or South. I am talking about it in terms of sounding forth the trumpet that will never call retreat. We cannot retreat. We cannot rest. We cannot stop. We must prevail. For our own sake, for the sake of our families, for the sake of our people, for the sake of this planet. We cannot let monsters like Bill Gates prevail. We cannot. It's not negotiable.
So Anna, we got quite a few hands up this evening. I want to just check on time with you.
Yes, Lisa, I'm ready to go.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Rocky has his hand up, David.
Sure thing. Okay, I got a list here that I wrote before I lost anything. So I got Rocky, and then Nancy, and then David Hara, and then Mike McGowan, and then Gerda and Diana, and then John Russell. So there's a couple more after that. So you guys, that's the order I've got. So we'll start off with Rocky. Rocky, go ahead. You got the floor.
How you doing, Anna? I can tell you that I'm 100% behind everything you're doing. And it disgusts me with the amount of people that the way they talk to you and the way they accuse you of things when we all know it's not true. You know what I mean? So anyway, my question is, you know how you're sending out the roll call ballots and that kind of stuff. My question to you would be, could you, I'm going to kind of throw Michelle into this, and I know she's not here and I wish she was, that could you actually give it to her to send out to all the coordinators? Because I think she has the most up-to-date list of all the coordinators.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's going to go to the state coordinator group. You know, if there's more than one, you know, it'll go out to the coordinators for distribution. People will get a chance to look at it. and,
Mhm.
you know, everybody will
But
get
the-
together
yeah.
and take the vote.
The problem is right now is not all the coordinators are not getting the documents you're sending out. And I don't know if Terry just doesn't have a full list of everybody or whatever, but I know Michelle does because we're all here, right? And I
Right?
would think that would probably be the best avenue to get it out if Michelle would want to do it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, I'm sure that this is, what this is gonna come down to is that you all vote within your state on the
Mhm.
issue. And then, you know, you'll have a general assembly meeting, you'll vote,
Mhm.
and then the lead coordinator or most senior coordinator or, you know, will send the result back to Terry.
Mhm.
Terry will keep the tally of all 50 states. Or I don't know if it'll be Terry herself, but the Washington Assembly will keep the vote
Mhm.
count and record of it. And then they'll announce what happened.
Yeah. But what we did is we actually created paper ballots for it. And we
Mhm.
sent it out to all the people in Nevada. And we're
Mhm.
hoping to get the paper ballots back and we're going to certify those and then we'll mail those back to you or email them or whatever we need to do to get them back so
Okay,
that we
well,
have proof.
I think there's been a little bit of a misunderstanding. What we issued so far is a draft.
Mhm.
And then we took in all the commentary, which is kind of dribbled in over the past couple of weeks. We'll
Right.
put together a final version, a final ballot package that will include answers to some of the questions that people have asked, and which will include
Mhm.
additional little bits and pieces.
Right.
Um,
Well, I knew that. And
Oh,
that was the reason why I asked if Michelle could get it out so that we all got it,
right,
even though we're going to do a preliminary vote, by the 22nd to just see where everybody stands on the
right.
issues.
Yeah.
And the deal is just hoping that we can get that updated information. And like I said, I think Michelle would be the best bet to do that, but I'm just throwing it out there. It doesn't have to go that way. I'm just making a suggestion. Okay.
Right, well, in terms of our ballot package, we want to get it out to everybody. And so
Right.
we'll make, you know, every effort to get it out
Mhm.
to all the states and all the people.
Right. And then the next thing I wanted to say is, I've heard all the stuff about you doing a Ponzi scheme and all this other kind of stuff. And I know people that has done that kind of stuff and they're billionaires, millionaires, from doing it. And here you are sitting in a double white trailer. I mean, it's not paying off for you if that's what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? So I don't believe it. And I don't think all the people I know don't believe it. So I just don't know where these people get off accusing people of things that they really don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and don't understand, if they even understood what a Ponzi scheme was, they would realize that what Hunter did was not a Ponzi scheme. It was just pure pilfering,
Right.
you know?
Right.
It
So,
didn't have anything to do with bringing in people
Mhm.
or, you know, it has nothing to do with your declaration of status.
right.
It's
And
just,
with the whole thing too is I don't know how many times that you needed money to do different things for us and we've sent you money. That's not a Ponzi scheme.
no,
No, that's us helping the cause. Right.
exactly. I've made it perfectly clear that it's a free
Mhm.
will donation
Right.
operation. I
Right.
haven't even charged anything for my copyrighted material. I mean, I get
Mhm.
nothing from the sale of the books.
Right.
You know, you go buy it on Amazon, I don't get a penny.
And it's just I just want to say I'm just appalled about the people that doing this kind of stuff that they just need to stop. It's unproductive for everything that we're trying to do. You know what I mean?
Well, and it doesn't, it always is, you know,
Mhm.
this is not the first time that I've taken up the topic of gossip. I don't need to be the topic of gossip to object to it. I object to it on principle.
Yeah, it's not only you that's the gossip goes. I mean, Michelle's got it, I've got it. I mean, a lot of us in the assembly has got this kind of gossip and stuff, and we don't need it. This is not what we're supposed to be doing, on all this. But
Well,
anyway, I just wanted to make my comments on it because I just don't believe the stuff that's going around. It's just people are crazy. You know what I mean? And
But they're also, you know, Rocky, I always think they're exposing more about themselves than they're exposing about me or anybody else, because they don't really know me. They're just,
True.
you know, making a version of me up
Yeah,
and trying to give it legs. So
true.
what they're
I mean,
really exposing is how shallow and how petty and how fearful and how
mm,
undiscerning they really are.
right. No, it's true. It just, it's crazy. But anyway, there was one last thing. Tomorrow is going over the hill and her internet's going in and out. And she wanted me to tell you that she sent you an email and she would like you to read it if you can.
I will.
Okay? I
All right.
appreciate it. We love you. You stay strong and we're all behind you. Bye.
Thank you, Rocky. Okay,
Welcome.
next up we have Nancy Brainerd.
Hello,
Hello. Hi,
Nancy.
Anna.
How are
You
you?
had such a wonderful, inspiring speech. What you just said just touched me to the bone. And and I'm sure everybody feels that way. And it's really tough to be here and keep at it and do all the work. And I just can't imagine the years that you've done this.
I can't
So I
either.
just want to thank you. I have 4 questions, and it really relates to what you said. These are all questions you have answered over and over and over and over. Okay. So, one of the things that came up is when you announced a couple weeks ago that the bank will be open on September 1st, my assumption was that they were gonna have it all set up and, we would eventually be able to log in like we had prior. Well, some people are under the understanding they assumed that they would be getting their funds, and so they're preparing to quit jobs that they need to survive. So if you could address that one.
No. We have gotten to the point where we have repaired all the bits and pieces that we had to tear out, in separating the software and the hardware and everything from the bank. So we've gotten back to point zero, we've gotten back to the situation where we have a system, which is our own system that's totally, rebuilt. Okay. We rebuilt the engine. All right. We still have to put the engine back in the car. We still have to sync everything. We still have to, which I'm pretty sure we will make the September 1st opening to be able to access accounts and see all that stuff. It won't be liquid until we solve the problem of the prepaid credit, because that's our entree into the commercial fiat system. You see, there are 2 completely different systems. There's the asset-backed money, and then there's the credit debt system. And fortunately or unfortunately, for the last umpty-ump years, they've been using the credits, or rather the debt, to pay for things. And they've created a monopoly. I mean, when you go down to the corner grocery store, you cannot pay in Swiss francs, right? You can't pay for your groceries in Spanish lira. They have a domestic monopoly on what kind of money is going to be used for transactions in this country. And the form of money that they popularized and imposed on us was the Federal Reserve note. And they've continued to impose this fiat currency, which they admit has no value. It is a merely symbolic value. There are court cases that prove that you could steal an entire trainload of Federal Reserve notes and you couldn't be charged with theft. Okay, that's how completely valueless these notes really are. And so here we are, faced with a situation where we're forced to use these worthless pieces of paper as a medium of exchange. And at the same time, we have gold-backed, asset-backed money that really is worth at least the value of the gold, something actual and tangible and real. But how do you bring those two systems together? And how can you exchange something that has only symbolic value for something that has actual market commodity value? Well, the answer is you can't. Not and have it make any sense. But they crossed that line back in 1934 when they forced an inequitable exchange of US silver dollars for Federal Reserve notes using the Emergency Banking Act. That's where that slip joint in reality went haywire. But having done that, then you've created a rupture between these two systems. You've created a portal between these two systems. And having done that, the only way to correct that is going back through that portal. Okay, so what you need to balance out debt is credit. And what we have is gold. So we've got gold and silver over here on this side of the reality ledger. And we've got credits and debts over here on this other side of the ledger. All right? People have a real hard time understanding that. And yet anybody who's ever tried to exchange a silver coin for Federal Reserve notes knows the shtick. You can go to any yard sale or gun show or anything around this country and you'll find United States silver dollars on sale. And you're going to pay somewhere around $25 for that ounce of silver. So there's no longer a one-to-one correspondence. And if we were rational, there probably wouldn't be any correspondence between Federal Reserve notes and silver dollar. So when people are looking at me and they're saying, oh, we need liquidity, we need liquidity, we need liquidity. We want to trade our AFD for Federal Reserve notes so that we can buy things at the grocery store. I understand. But you have to understand that in order to do that, there has to be an exchange rate. There has to be an exchange process. There has to be some way to exchange gold-backed AFD with debt notes. And this is called an exchange platform, and this is where things get hard. Because even though you know how much that gold is selling for, you have to translate that and you have to have some sort of coupon or receipt. They're currently calling this a receipt, okay? You have to have something that you can exchange in the credit world against the debt note. Because you don't have a debt. All you've got is credit. And it's that juncture between our credit and their debt system that is so difficult to navigate. And they put up a real fight. You have no idea what I have gone through simply for observing that they owe us all this prepaid credit. You would think I had killed their mother. And, it's the reaction is just totally out of focus or, but here is the reality. I took people who thought that we were the debtors and who were enjoying indebting us and, burying us under a tide of debt. And I said, oh, the hell you beller. We're not the debtors in this situation. Whatever else we are, we're the preferential creditors, and by many, many country miles. They didn't want to hear that. But that's the truth. And so getting them to play ball, even though the truth is obvious and inescapable, and getting them to accept the remedy, the only solution that has ever been found to this particular problem, which is the lawful conversion, that is nationalization of all these banks. And along with that conversion, the issuance of a credit instrument that will balance out the Federal Reserve notes and close them out. And then continue to act as a credit system. Just as we've had a system that used debt and even was crazy enough to propose to pay debt with debt so that all you could ever do is accrue more debt. Now we've got the opposite situation where we have accrued this unimaginable amount of prepaid credit. And probably for the next 1,000 years, we're just going to be working on a credit system. You'll use credit vouchers. They didn't want to hear that, but this is the truth. We're going to blow through the national debt in like that. There will no longer be a national debt. There will no longer be interest on the national debt. That will be gone because the moment you start applying your prepaid credit to the debt note economy, it's going to evaporate. And after that, there's going to be nothing but credit. And credit and credit and credit, and I'll credit you and you'll credit me, and everything will be very positive. We'll be living on the positive side of the ledger. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. I have a couple other questions. So I may have made a grave error. I had an undocumented man. He went to prison. He's been out of prison over 10 years, but I went ahead and favored him up.
You didn't make an
He's
error.
undocumented. Is that wrong? He was
No.
undocumented. It's been more than 10 years. So that's
You
all
were
right.
Yes, you were right.
Okay.
Okay. Once somebody is left the prison system, they are like they're newborn babies. They have paid their debt, and that's that. The prescription against a felony conviction is in the first year of being in this country. And he was here for a lot longer than that.
He's been here about 30 years.
Yeah.
So he is quite he's middle-aged. So my next question is, so state citizens,
Mm-hmm.
we need people to serve on our assembly in public offices. And they have to meet a certain criteria. And the best and the brightest of us own businesses, have LLCs. And how does that make them have an allegiance to the foreign government when really their allegiance is only and ever has been to their family?
Well, think of it this way. Can an American own a British pub? Sure, they can go over to England, they can buy a British pub, but they have to operate that pub under British law because guess what? It's an English pub, even if it has an American owner, and it exists in England. And so it's under English law. And it's the same thing here. When you buy or create a corporation and it's incorporated under either the British or the Roman municipal law, you're an American still, but you own this foreign entity, either a British Crown Corporation franchise or a municipal franchise, either way, and you have to operate it under their law, which only makes sense, right? If it's a British corporation, it's under British law. If it's a Roman municipal corporation, it's under Roman civil law. And you are you're preserving your own status as an American because what? An American can own a British corporation. An American can own a Roman municipal corporation too. But you have to operate those corporations according to their foreign law. You can't operate it under your American public law. Now, you do have that other option, but for many years, for self-interested reasons, the state organizations have not offered you that option. You haven't been able to incorporate an American corporation. You haven't been able to stand your business and your incorporated business under American law. And they've made it very difficult for you to do that, even though you have the right to do it. And you have a treaty guarantee that you can do it. So it becomes a trick where Americans create corporations. They create foundations and cooperatives and LLCs and PLCs and S Corps and B Corps and C Corps and all these different corporate structures without really realizing what they're doing. They don't realize that they're creating a British business or a Roman municipal business, and they don't know what kind of law those respective options function under, and they don't know that they become responsible for that corporation operating under a foreign law in this country. And so they get into trouble and they get into IRS taxes and garnishments and record keeping, and they fall afoul of all sorts of other arcane statutes and codes, and you have to hire experts to be able to plod through the fog of all of the different things that apply to these foreign corporations. Well, here's an interesting factoid. When you talk to the people that are actually responsible for this system, they will look at you and they'll be astonished. They'll say, well, isn't that perfectly obvious that if you are going to set up a British Crown Corporation franchise, that the corporation is a British subject and you have to run it under British law? Would you expect to buy a pub in Britain and run it under American law? They just stare at us like we're completely nuts. They think we're horribly incompetent, that we never notice anything. and that we just kind of blunder along and make these stupid assumptions. And then we get into trouble with them, and they're the innocent third party because, of course, it should have been obvious to us that we were creating a British Crown Corporation franchise, and we therefore became responsible for all of these employer numbers, and we became, employers of numerous different kinds of people, and we had to keep all these records, and this was just part of going into it and creating a British Crown Corporation. So why are we whining now about having the IRS break into our home office and confiscate our computer and accuse us of being a tax cheat? Okay, so a lot of people come to us and they say, oh, thank goodness. Oh, this is home. Oh, this is where I can be free. This is where my business can just operate as a normal business and not have all of these horrible statutory and tax obligation. And it's true. You can do this. However, you have to make the conscious choice to operate an American business under American law as an American. And that's a choice that the system, as it currently presents to us, doesn't offer. It's a choice, again, that we have to create for ourselves, just like we have to create our own courts. And so most people have kind of stumbled along. They went into the state of state division of commerce, or they went to the state of state division of business licensing, or however they entered the state of state maze. Somebody gave them a form to fill out and said, okay, well, you want to create a corporation of this kind? Well, here's the form for it. And you just went through the whole process. You named a treasurer, a secretary, a president, and you stated the business, and you looked up the codes to find out what kind of business it was. You went through the whole rigmarole. And 99.9% of the people leaving that office do not even know what kind of corporation they actually set up. They don't know if it's a British Crown Corporation. They don't know if it's a Roman Municipal Corporation. They don't know what law it is subject to. They don't know how to operate it. And they don't know that they just voluntarily subjected themselves to the entire rigmarole of the Internal Revenue Service and a whole, a huge panoply of different pension programs and unemployment insurances and Social Security taxation and all of it. But they did. Okay, so a lot of people who come to us have these corporations, these foreign corporations, and they don't know, they want the freedom, but they don't know how to get there because they've already created a foreign entity that they've invested in. And how do you get out? Right? It doesn't, once you've created a British entity, it doesn't become un-British just because you waved a pen over it again. And once you say that you dissolve your corporation, say that you have a British Crown LLC, and for whatever reason, you decide that you're too old to put up with all of the rigmarole involved and all the tax filings and blah, 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 and expense and endangerment and claims and all that. So you decide that you want to have an American business. You want a truly independent American business. Well, you can operate a truly independent American business simply by operating it as an unincorporated business. You can do the same exact things that you do now, unless it requires a federal license, which then is another little segue that you have to dance your way through. But you can do the same exact thing that you've always done as an American unincorporated business that you could do as a British territorial corporation franchise, or as a Roman municipal corporation franchise. The only differences are that the American version is going to stand under American public law, which is a lot simpler, which does not require that you, as an employer, keep track of any other American you employ, and does not require you to, do any of these reporting requirements or subject your books to financial audits and all that stuff. It just goes away. Okay. The other thing that is different is that American businesses that are rooted in land law do not require let's put it this way. You do not get bankruptcy protection. Okay, there's no corporate veil separating you from accountability for the harm that your business may do. But for most of us, we're not engaged in anything dangerous. We're not doing anything that could harm anybody. And so we don't need bankruptcy protection. Okay? So you don't get bankruptcy protection, but what you do get instead is freedom from private insurance and indemnification. And there's an element of goodwill and intent here. It's not a absolute free pass. But if you do something, or God forbid, there's a flood, and some barrels of oil that were on your business premises get washed into the river and create an oil slick and a spill, and it's a huge mess. Okay. Well, a lot of businesses would carry insurance for that sort of thing. An American business would not carry insurance for that kind of thing. They would be indemnified. Okay. There's that word again. They would be indemnified as long as the damage was not intentional or malicious or caused by gross negligence.
So, the second part of this is, and this will be my last question because there's more, but it's taken up quite a bit of time. As Americans, aren't we allowed to conduct commerce with our lawful person with all three jurisdictions?
No, each jurisdiction has a person. The land jurisdiction is your lawful person, stands under land law, as in law of the land, as in constitution, all of that. Okay, so your lawful person is your first person. All right. Then you have a legal person that exists in the jurisdiction of the sea. That's your first legal person. And then you have a second legal person that is an incorporated entity. And that functions in the jurisdiction of the air. So there are three different persons attached to each one of the principal jurisdictions in international, I guess you could say, parlance. We have not had the use of our lawful persons for a very long time because our land jurisdiction government was vacated without our knowledge or consent. And we ourselves were presumed to be at sea in the same exact circumstances what went on with the English Civil War. So I hope that helps. Does that help?
Thank you so much, Anna. Thank you very much. I yield.
Okay.
Thank you, Nancy. Next up is David Hara, and then Mike McGowan, you're up after that.
Oh, thank you, David. Anna, it's just so wonderful that you're here for all of us. I want to follow up on what you had said a couple of Mondays back, where you were saying that we need courts in order to be able to enforce our rights on our property. In California, we have identified about 50 ASNs in our jury pool who are all studying and getting ready to be jurors. And the question, we are not able to invoke ex parte Milligan, I think. I don't think we're ready for that. But we're wondering if we can, with volunteers acting as justice, a volunteer for court clerk, a volunteer for court reporter, we're wondering if we can form a court and maybe start enforcing some easier issues. And we're just wondering if you could help us with that question.
Yeah, there are a lot of easier things that you can start with. You don't have to start with all the big heavy stuff, murder trials and whatnot. You can start with much simpler issues. You can start with habeas corpus enforcements to get your people back out of the corporate courts. You can start as a court of record, where you're just looking at the record, the public record established by notarized and certified and publicly recorded documents, and using that as the basis of your decisions. So a court of record, I ran a court of record here in Alaska for 9 years now. And anybody can do a court of record, because that's just an honest assessment of the record related to something. You can do all sorts of constitutional issues. You can claim your constitutional rights by what we're doing here, first and foremost, identifying yourself as an American and all of that. But you can also then, once you've set up to claim your constitutional rights, you can set up a constitutional court. We have the right to run up to our own federal Supreme Court. We have the right to do it. Now, we got to get motivated and educated and do it, but we can go all that way. We have a state Supreme Court here that I'm a justice of in Alaska, and we can go up to the state Supreme Court level right here and now. And it's primarily for constitutional issues. Like, have you violated someone's constitutional guarantee to the right of privacy? Yes or no? Okay. You can easily decide those kinds of questions at the level that you're at right now. You can get a jury.
Excellent.
Yeah, you can get a jury pool together, and you can write a writ against any other court. You can issue writs of replevin in cases like, where the corporation has seized someone's home. You can consider the facts and the issues, and look at what was paid by who. Was anything paid actually, or was it just a credit, a debt transaction? You can include references to material that the other courts can't access in your deliberations about constitutional issues, because you're a land court, and you can bring in the record of the land court decisions, whereas the sea courts can't.
Can we do that as just simple volunteers, or do we need to be elected into these positions?
Well, you need to be elected into the justice positions. Like I was elected to be a justice in the Alaska Supreme Court. You could hold a election for people to stand for as justices in the California Supreme Court. And the hard part has been finding competent candidates for the office who would basically do a risky public service for free. Let's put it that way.
Okay. That-
But
So, yeah, so can we do the election just by a hand raise in our, in one of our General Assembly meetings? Someone volunteers to be justice and, and we do an election just by hand raising, or, I mean, without publishing in the newspaper and all that official that we did, 3 or 4 years ago.
right. Those were General Assembly elections, and the tradition is that the General Assembly holds the elections for juror officers. So what you would do is you would call a special General Assembly meeting. You would say, okay, these are the positions that we need to fill. You'd give a little description of the positions. You would entertain nominations from the floor, and you would have a nomination period of 30 days. Give people 30 days to look at the job descriptions and everything, and come forward and offer to stand for election in those positions. And once they declare that they are, that they're going through this nomination, or they're being nominated by a group or something like that, then they get vetted to make sure that they're eligible for the office that they're seeking. And that most often is just a very cursory business of, are you of the age of majority? Have you are at least 21 years of age? Do you have a criminal record that would moderate against you being able to serve in this office? For example, if you have a record as an embezzler, then you probably aren't going to be vetted for state treasurer.
Right.
Okay. So, you basically check the boxes. Is this person eligible? Are they reasonably competent? Are they of age? Do they have a bad criminal record? You do your due diligence as a vetting committee, and assuming that they are eligible, then their name gets onto the ballot, and they get voted in or out at a stipulated meeting,
Right.
You
Okay.
get-
So this makes it all very laid out and easy to accomplish, actually. So
Yeah,
I'm so happy to hear you describing it for us this way.
yeah, it is. Our government is easy. Our government is common sense.
Yes.
And so then you have the second meeting, you have the election, you have an elections committee within the General Assembly, people that volunteer to be the elections committee for that particular election from the General Assembly. And they then count the ballots and they announce the results. And then you will want to put out a little public notice in the newspaper, just, so and 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 so were elected to these respected offices, and they have a term of 2 years or whatever. Okay,
Okay.
that's it.
Okay. Thank you. We'll give it a shot. And thank you.
Okay,
Thank you
go
so
for
much,
it and
Anna.
conquer.
I yield.
Okay, take care, David.
Thank you.
And Mike McGowan is up next.
Hi, Anna. I'm having a real hard time hearing and whatnot. I'm going to send you a physical invite to the internet protocol that I've been working on. Is really a court of record that everybody can use and can tie into WordPress. Anyway, I'm just going to send that physically to you, but
Okay.
I think it could tie into a remedy that we might be able to use until such time as we figure out how to cross back into that the physical to the paper world. But anyway, I'd appreciate it if you would take a look at it, and was wondering if maybe somebody should look at it before, should I send it to Harold first or Eric?
if it's a court of record that you're trying to set up sort of a format that the General Assemblies can use to reliably have a court of record procedure.
Well, yeah, it's going to be a bigger picture that it's really to give standing and provenance to every website, so we know when we go there. And the idea is you join it, and you join it by saying, I don't want to live under the Roman Mundus Volt Decipi anymore, and I want to live under the prudent man standard, because if we have a website, it shouldn't be doing harm to the living.
Right.
And
okay,
so
well, I would be the one to look at it, Mike, because I'm, even if I don't have time to really grind through it myself, I do have other competent people that can look at it and, give back feedback. And so I would be the distributor and delegator of work anyway. So you might as well.
okay.
Send it to me.
All right, I'll do it. Thank you.
Okay.
I yield.
Okay, next up is Gerda.
Yes, hello, Anna. Hello, everybody. Anna, I can't believe you're still able to answer all these questions, given how little sleep you have had. Anyway, I'm going to try to be very quick here. We have a group in Eastern Canada, and I interacted with them briefly and suggested that they come and look at what we were doing on the land. And they indicated that they were focused on working with international military. And I'm assuming that they must be in the sea, but is there military groups that are working supposedly towards some of the same ends we are, but that are still in the sea, or are there any on the land? And are you able to comment on that? And thank you so much in advance.
Well, some countries, actually 2/3 of the countries on Earth, their militaries were never converted into mercenary organizations. They have actual true militaries. And so they're in a slightly different situation in terms of their jurisdiction and the law that they operate under and everything else, except that I believe that things are being cleared away now so that they will all come back to being lawful national militaries instead of private mercenary services. I think that is going to be the inevitable result of international politics, and also the inevitable result when we get down and vote on this new public law outlawing mercenary activities and wars for profit. So I think that the day when there will be this need for an international military effort against the mercenary services, I think that is going to evaporate more or less with the stroke of a pen. And we are going to be the ones holding that pen. Because when you are voting to outlaw the mercenary aspects and mercenary lawfare, you're actually doing away with legalized mercenary services. And once that becomes the public law of this country, then naturally there will be military services that are transnational in nature, but they'll all be truly military, not mercenary services, which will.
You guys shutting down check-in, right? Is somebody cleaning up out there?
Thank you, Hot Mike.
Yeah. So I hope that makes sense to everybody. That
yeah, I think that is great. Really good to know. Thank you so much, Anna. And I hope you get some sleep soon.
Anna, that was me. I muted you. I'm sorry. I was trying to mute somebody else that had an open mic. So you're going to have to unmute yourself.
I said I'm
Thank
going
you.
to head immediately from this meeting to a hot bubble bath. And I'm going to hope I don't fall asleep in the bathtub again. I've already done that twice this month. But anyway, I'm hoping that I don't fall asleep in the bathtub and can actually make it to bed.
Oh my. Okay. Next up is Diana.
Yes, thank you, friends. So I have a interesting scenario. Our collective email that all the states use, I'm on Kentucky. Today, I received a notice from the email provider asking me to enter in and put in my password, and it wouldn't accept the password. I called the company in California, and they said that it was a false notice. It was not from them.
Right, a scam.
Yes, so I'm basically just letting everyone know that something's going on with our email and we should not enter into that. And if you do, change your password.
Yeah, there's an awful lot of phishing scams going on with different kinds of organizations trying to make claims against you and your assets based on some bit of information. And so you have to be very, very careful about scam operators that are trying to steal your information, your name, your social security number, especially, sometimes even your phone number. And if they can steal passwords or get into your email or anything like that, they are out there circling like vultures. So be very careful about scams and anything that asks you for any information. If you did not contact that business or individual, okay, that's the, that's the biggie. If you didn't actually make a contact yourself and the business is just contacting you, you have no way of knowing if that is actually the business that you recognize or think you recognize. And it's better to be safe than sorry. We'll see what we can do about that since it's affecting the email. We'll get some of the IT guys to look at it. Thank you.
Now it's actually Gio, then Diana. Next up, John Russell. We finally made it to you, and then Marlene and Dolores after that.
Good evening, Anna.
Hi, John.
I have a $100 bill here from 1934. And it's got some doggy ears on it, and it's been around the town a few times. So let's put that one on the list too. On our public law that we're working on, I was talking to a few friends of mine, and they said, make sure that the water's taken care of, which we are, and the air, which we are, and clothes. I've never heard of a problem with clothes. Because these are women I was talking to, so I don't have, what clothes, what problems we have with clothes, but they were concerned about it. And then the last one they came up with was, of course, medicine and hospitals and all that stuff.
Patent medicine.
So that's all I had to ask today or tell you about that. That's what they came up with.
Okay. Well, would you mind just making a list of all the suggestions, worthy suggestions you've made so far? I know I've got at least 2 of them already incorporated into things, but if you could just write that down for me and shoot it, no, I'll recognize it's from you.
Certainly, I can do that for you. No problem.
All right. Thanks.
And one last thing, could you say hello to a friend of ours we have in Australia? Her name is Angie in Perth, Australia. She's just a new member that she's excited about reading your articles and everything.
Uh-oh, she's got a lot to read.
Yes.
Be sure and warn her that it goes in a chronological order from the oldest
Yes.
to the newest. And I personally recommend starting at the newest at the bottom of the list of articles so that you get centered in
Keep up to
time.
date.
Yeah, you're up to date. Well, hello, Angie. Welcome. We have lots of people in Australia who are joining their assemblies and forming their assemblies, and I'm sure that you are going to enjoy this experience and rejoice in having your own constitutional government back in your hands, because it's been commandeered and railroaded since 1908.
Wow.
Thank
So-
you. You have a great evening and get to that bubble bath very soon, please.
I'm going to.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
All right, Marlene, you're up next, and then Dolores.
Okay. Hi, Anna. It's Marlene. I'm Washington.
Hey, Marlene.
I have something to share with everyone. First off, I want to thank you and the Federation for all of your dedication and your love. And I might cry. Okay. I want to thank everyone that's on this call that works hard to get things done, that never gives up. I want to thank Christy and Doug for their weekly dedication for the last 3 years for the Silver Bullet. And there's so many more. And I want to thank Terry for her dedication of the roundtable and how important everyone should listen. I want to thank Lisa for her training, because with all of us working together, we will have success. Our success today starts for a man that you know probably. His name is Scott Verling. Scott had fought the IRS war. He went to prison, and while he was in prison, his wife died from stage 4 breast cancer. He had 5 kids under the age of 10. And he had been fighting and fighting and fighting. And they took all of his properties. They charged him $1 million in restitution, and his court thing was he was charged with a failing to file and a misdemeanor. So I came along 3 years ago and met Scott, and I felt bad. So I was the recording secretary for Grant County, and I said, Scott, I'm willing to help you. Let's fight this battle again. So they started sending 20 to 30 letters a day, and he would bring me piles of letters. And you get to the point where your stomach just drops into the hole and you can't pull yourself out, and you don't know what's going to work. Well, about a year ago or less, you had suggested to write a letter to The Hague, and so we did. And in the meantime, they took his passport, and that was really another gut punch, because his daughter lives out of country. So today arrived in the mail another IRS letter, and he walked it over without opening, with tears, and he said, I don't think I could do this. And I said, Scott, we're not giving up. We've fought this. There's been so many people that have fought this. We're not giving up. And he opened it up, and $7 million. They released his passport and the debt. And we just stood in the backyard and hugged each other and cried of joy. But we're still not going to give up, because, Anna, you know and I know that these bastards cannot be trusted. And we have to have faith and hope. And we have to keep fighting these assholes. Sorry. Because it's so bad that even if you try to take time to watch a joyful movie, you still find crime there and fraud. And you're like, I cannot forget this, but I just wanted to share that we're all in this together. We will win this. It's going to be a battle, but think of all of the men and women that have gone to war and falsely too, and lost their lives, lost their families, lost their children and their lives. And nobody said it was going to be easy. No one. Anyways, I just want to share and say thank you to everyone that's on this call, because we're all fighting this battle, and don't give up hope, and share your time. Every little bit, little by little, helping others, we'll get there. I love you guys all, and thank you, Anna, again. And I wish Jim was here to help us in this joyous event, but I know in spirit he is, and he's pushing, pushing, pushing. So I love you, and tell Harold and Shannon and the team, thank you.
You too, Marlene. You've just had one of those profound experiences where, you know, you have been able to express the truth in a way that compelled them to release him. And so he has his life back. He has suffered things that cannot be returned. He has lost time out of his life, time with his family, the enjoyment of his home and his businesses and other assets that they had no right to interfere in. He has wounds from this that will continue to haunt him until he actually spends time with himself to heal. It does not go away easily.
You're so right about that.
No, it does not. And, you know, I have people that I love who are still in jail, who took bad advice, and who received completely inequitable, horrible treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking now of the Colorado 9. I will very briefly recount what happened. We were establishing the first assembly in Colorado. Well, not the first assembly, but the first since our restoration. Okay, so and we had a really good group going. And then a guy named, can't remember if it was William or Mark, but a guy named Hamilton came into the assembly, and he was a real rabble rouser and you know, the supremacy of the people in the sovereign state, and yeah, we can do whatever we want, and we don't have to pay attention to what these other blokes are doing, and you know, and he got everybody all fired up. And, you know, deep in their history of looking at the Federalist Papers and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, I'm all for people educating themselves and knowing the history and everything, but you also have to deal with reality and the fact that these foreign corporations are operating these foreign courts in a different jurisdiction, and they are addressing made-up entities, right? And knowing that, it makes no sense at all to go into those courts and rabble-rouse about the Constitution, because the plaintiffs and the defendants in those courts have no constitutional rights. They're not people.
True.
They're not even American. So, you know, but anyway, they went into the courtroom and, you know, were laying down the law to this judge, and they threw the book at him. And they are still in jail, even though they didn't actually do anything. They didn't
Mhm.
harm anyone. They didn't threaten anybody in terms of anything but the law, what the law actually says. They didn't destroy any property. So they basically got sentences of like 36 and 38 years of hard time. And I do mean they've been suffering hard time for thought crimes, for
It's horrible.
stepping over a jurisdictional line that didn't. I was the only person who ever explained it to them, and they didn't listen to me,
Mhm.
and so they got in trouble. And this is the horrible end result. Well, I am looking forward to seeing an end to the illegal taxation of millions of Americans and illegal harassment of millions of Americans. I'm looking forward to the IRS being cast out into the outer darkness. And if it has any role at all, it will have to be in places like Puerto Rico that are functioning as British Commonwealths and that sort of thing. I'm done with the IRS and the Internal Revenue Service too, because they have no right to be here and they have no right to misaddress and misapply their statutes and laws to average Americans.
Yep.
Do this impersonation and identity theft routine.
Totally.
Yeah.
I got
well,
one more thought too. So Doug and Christy have created the silver bullet. And Mitch Wexler, which you know his case about the property tax fraud.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking about, what do you think about sending the silver bullet with a certified copy of Mitch Wexler's Supreme Court case to to the tax people and see what they think?
There's something else you might want to add to a package. And this is something I've been thinking about that I've known about for years. But they always begin these prosecutions and misaddress the municipal person. And so the Roman civil law is the operant law for those initial cases. And there's something that was written by a woman who goes under the pseudonym Kate of Gaia. And Kate of Gaia has written a very intricate, it's called a clausula sextantibus, and it's Latin and it means as things now stand. And it's basically a release clause to contractual processes. And in very legalistic terms and, and almost pedantic, but necessary to understanding style, she lays out the entire fraud scheme. I think it's 3 pages long. And when they see this, when a lawyer receives this, it's like kryptonite. It's like if they touch it, if they see it, if it lands in their hands, then they become responsible for that knowledge. And they cannot proceed in the face of it. I've seen it happen literally dozens of times now, where judges recuse themselves. Lawyers refuse to represent plaintiffs. All sorts of strange things happen because it's basically telling them not only the fraud, but there has been a change in the contract as a result of the fraud. And that's what kills them. So I'm going to send that. I just recently got a new copy of that. I hadn't seen it for about 10 years. I recently got a new copy of that, and I'm going to send it on to Doug Minnick.
Okay.
And see what we can see about it, more and more power to the people and to the issues.
I'm in to help. So,
Okay.
all right. Have a good bubble bath and love you. Take care. Bye.
Thanks, Marlene.
Thank you.
Dolores, go ahead. You got the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. Anna, it's a very quick question because I want you to go and rest. It's a yes or no question. Would you be interested in having an interview with Cal Washington, someone interviewing both of you?
Sure.
Great. I think we need to get all the audiences from everyone on the same page, and then Tony has offered to do it for you and him, but Carl Washington, every Friday he has another interview with another person who is also part of Empower, but he's got another audience. So I think if we could get the two of you together, and maybe with Govinda as well, who is also part of Empower. So you are three really major posts there that can bring different type of people, and then see that everything is one. We are one. It will be a great outreach, I think.
We are one, and we're all in this together.
And we are not going to give up. We are here to the end of times, if necessary. Okay, I will be in touch. I will coordinate with them and let you know. Thank you so
Great.
much.
Thank
you for your inspiration tonight. God bless you, Anna.
You too.
Bye.
Okay, Anna. I think that's it. There's no more hands, and I think your duty shift is done. What time did you start? What time did you last have your eyes closed up?
It was the night before, the day before yesterday. It began one whole day, night, one whole day, night, and then today.
Wow. So it was like 60 hours.
Terrible. I kind of lose track. This job, being the fiduciary, it's just so everybody knows that, and all those of you who are waiting in line to take over for me when I finally die in the traces, or whatever happens to me. It's a very trying schedule because you have to talk to people all over the world all the time. And of course, it's tomorrow in Japan. And it's almost 9 hours ahead in England even. And so you have to keep track of all these different time zones, and you have to get different people from different corners of the world together. And just keeping up with that is a good portion of why I don't get enough sleep. Just that schedule caused by the turning of the globe. And the other thing is that sometimes I get so damned angry, my adrenaline is rushing around my body and I can't sleep. I can just lay there and I'm just so upset about something that I become a little fuss budget, and I lose sleep that way too. But this was a whole negotiation session that we just went through, and it impacts how different things are going to be interpreted going forward. It impacts the military and how the military is operating in a functional way. It's going to impact the release of gold and prepaid credit. I was working on that. And I think it's going to open up some wonderful opportunities for people who are involved in our banking system versus the old British commercial maritime banks. They're commercial banks that we're also familiar with. Because what I'm working on is converting all of those banks, lawfully converting those banks, so that we don't have to go through and recreate the wheel and, buy banks and, go through this entire huge process of having competition between these insolvent commercial banks and ourselves and our banks. So I just want them all lawfully converted. And then we can just walk in and start doing what we do,
You make it sound smooth.
Well, it could be. It could be very smooth. It could be just the difference of, having a few different people managing the bank in lawful jurisdiction under land law, instead of sea law. Because see, here the thing is, folks, our law is so simple. It's just so commonsensical. If you don't harm anybody and you don't harm their property, then there's no injury and there's no cause for any harm or any suit, right? So I just wanted to say that this is the simplest solution is to lawfully convert these banks, bring them under land law, and then let them become the distribution points for, for us, for our system, our bilateral banking system, and our accounts with the AFD and the prepaid credit. So that's what I'm driving toward. And at first, when I brought this up, they all stared at me like a two-headed horse that was talking. And then they stopped and they looked at me and they thought, why not? It's really the simplest way through the maze. And I think there's a very good chance that we may succeed in convincing them to do it this way, which would make everything much easier for everybody. And it would open up the entire new world of abundant prepaid credit and abundant asset-backed currencies. And it would save both systems.
Excellent. Thank you, Anna. Have a great night. Stay above the waterline.
I'm going to go head for that bath. And if I don't fall asleep, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be able to sleep tonight. Everybody have a great week. Work hard, don't give up, and, just keep centered on what's important. And I hope to take some time off to go to your happy place. I'm going to go to my happy place tonight. I swear, and I never swear, that I'm very happy about getting my house back, and I'm going to let myself go visit my house mentally, even if I can't quite yet walk through the door. Okay, guys, good night.
All right, Anna. Have a great night. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for a great call. Good night.
Good night.
Night, Anna.
Night, Anna.
Night, Anna.
Good night, Anna.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you,
Good night,
David.
Anna.
Good night, Anna.
God bless everyone.
Love and appreciation to everyone.
Night, Anna.
Hugs to all.